Right. I'm sure that there will be. I know of them well, yeah. I'm not sure if there's anyone here representing them. I'll ask and get back to
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a Money Rebellion live stream. My name is Louisa, and I'm here today to share with you an action that's taking place at the Barclays annual general meeting, which is taking place here at the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Centre in Westminster, London. So this is the annual AGM of Barclays for investors all over the world. I've been invited here today to catch up on what Barclays has been doing recently, and Money Rebellion and various other organisations have turned up today to bear witness to this event, because actually what's been going on the last year at the heart of Barclays is funding and fueling climate chaos. So Barclays is one of the worst funders of oil and gas in the world, one of the worst investment banks, and certainly in the UK, out of the UK investment banks. In 2022 alone, Rainforest Action Network found that it has spent 16 billion on funding fossil fuel projects, and in fact 190 billion since the Paris Agreement in 2015, which was when the world came together and decided that we were going to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees temperature rise. And that obviously means bringing down carbon emissions a lot. Barclays is a big funder of these things, and as a result, it has big influence, but it's not using it. And it's been given a 0% score by LSE and the Grantham Environmental Institute on commitment to achieve net zero by 2050, and also on policy engagement. So they really need to step up. And you know, we're here today to say that this is actually, climate change is here right now, and the failure to engage with that fact when other banks are doing so, for example, HSBC, Lloyds and NatWest, it's really criminal and it needs to change. So hopefully inside today there's going to be shareholders making their views known, as well as outside here. So as I said, I'm here with Money Rebellion today. We're going to be seeing various things that they're doing in just a few minutes, but it's also great to see other non-governmental organisations here with their own problems that they want to bring to bear and make the public aware of as to what Barclays is funding. And obviously, the climate crisis intersects with everything. So we'll be talking to them as well to find out about their specific problems and how they intersect. We've got War on Want. We've got Feedback, which is a food waste charity, but we'll find out more about them in a little while. I've seen Palestine Action here, and I think Share Action is here also, and they're a charity which is specifically, they're aiming to use their shares and their investments to broker change in large companies. So let's take a little walk through the protest at the moment. It's really quite difficult to see everything because we have, I think, due to probably coronation things going on over at Westminster Abbey over there, there's a lot of barriers and such like. So it's quite difficult to see. We've got Barclays, the AGM entrance over there. You can see people walking in, being checked in. There's a few theatricals, which I'll see if we can take a closer look at shortly. And over on this side, which I won't be able to get to see these lovely posters, or yes, I will. Hello. We've got our other protesters. So like I said, take a quick walk through, and then I might pass over to see what's going on at an AGM from another bank, which is happening today, where we have Money Rebellion people, which is Standard Chartered, and that's taking place on the other side of London. So lots coming up for you this morning. Within the space of about an hour, we'll do a whistle-stop tour of the evils of the finance industry, funding fossil fuels, and contributing to an unlivable future for us all. Riveting viewing, I'm sure. It's a sunny day out here today, but all is not well with the world. So let's go see what's happening at Standard Chartered, I think. while I go find a few of my willing interviewees to talk about some of the issues that Barclays has with its investments.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Callender. I'm here in Aldersgate, which is just by the Museum of London, the Old Museum of London in Barbican. And this is where Standard Chartered are holding their annual general meeting today. So, as you can see, we've got a lot of people lined up outside the AGM to talk about what Standard Chartered are doing. Standard Chartered are the third largest funder of fossil fuel projects in the UK. And to give you an idea of what third largest is, that's £36 billion spent on fossil fuel projects directly over the last 6 years, since 2016, and the last time we've got figures. So a lot of money coming from Standard Chartered to these projects, and so this is really about cutting the ties that allow this fossil fuel era to continue. And what you're hearing now are testimonies that have come from Global South and the countries most affected by these projects. And that's quite a lot of countries. That's the Philippines. You've probably heard of the Adani Carmichael coal mine in Australia, a coal mine so big that it provides more power than all of Australia consumes right now. So this is it's a huge amount that's being funded here. Also the Equinor company that is working on the Rosebank oil field, which you've probably heard about. It's been in the news quite a lot recently up in Scotland. So again, that's all funded, in part by Standard Chartered. So here in the annual general meeting, the shareholders will be, having some impact on the next strategy for this bank. And what everyone here is telling them to do is to disrupt, boycott, transform. We've got to absolutely change our economies. And it goes deeper than that as well. So finance often provides a really interesting link to climate justice, because it's the money here being spent here in the UK, going through AGMs that are happening here in the UK, that are affecting countries in the Global South. It's the money here that is allowing and forcing people off their lands and allowing for an environment of extraction, exploitation and corruption. It's entirely funded here in the UK. And you can hear them shouting behind me, what do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. That's absolutely right. And so right at the root of that is the financial system and banks like Standard Chartered. The reason why we've got a cost of living crisis is just the incentives are out of whack. Right now in the news again, you probably saw oil companies, BP, again, windfall profits. Meanwhile, donations to food banks are down because inflation is still up. Poverty, even in this country, is going up. So there's a real issue with incentives. Food prices going up massively. Some staples gone up by 60, 40%, including bread and milk. So this is all a huge issue. Meanwhile, we continue to fund, through vessels like Standard Chartered, some of the most destructive fossil fuel projects that are happening when we should be defunding fossil fuels. It's an absolute no-brainer. If you want to bring yourself to zero, net zero, real zero, you've got to defund fossil fuels right now. We can't continue to invest in them. So the incentives are completely wrong. People are gathered here to talk about all the projects that are connected through the financial system, through banks like Standard Chartered. So yeah, this is where we are. What else to say? You've got people coming in and out right now. There's someone with Standard Chartered letterhead as well, so there'll be people who are taking part in the AGM, the annual general meeting. And if you're at home, really get involved with some of the other actions and campaigns that are happening. We've got a huge boycott campaign that will be coming up, so stay tuned on the Rebellion broadcast or tune in with Money Rebellion, hear more about the boycott, because actually what people do in this country especially really has a massive effect. And I say that not to privilege the UK, but because a huge amount of the financial laws and the financing happens in the UK, and that money is not getting back to the Global South. It's being taken from the Global South by keeping economies in the Global South dependent on raw material extracts, Meanwhile, manufacture is done in the global north countries. So often what happens is minerals are sucked out of the global south. Meanwhile, global south countries are forced to buy mineral processing units, everything from John Deere diggers to destroy the earth, to the actual kind of hardware, big tunneling machines, things like that, all made in global north countries like the UK and Germany. They get shipped to the global south at huge costs, forcing global south countries to pay for them. Meanwhile, the raw materials are extracted. And that's all part of this big cycle of debt and financing and financial incentives. And it's underpinned here by Standard Chartered, but also by the Treasury, by the Bank of England, by all the ways in which the UK government regulates this. So yes, we're here at the Standard Chartered AGM, but remember this is all part of a much deeper political scandal that's going on. It's a political crisis, but I always use the word scandal. This has been made by people. So when we say crisis, we think it's a natural event, but actually this is a scandal, and all of this stuff is linked together. So do take action, get involved with Money Rebellion, keep tuned into the Rebellion broadcast and hear more about the Standard Chartered and other financial AGMs happening over the next few months.
Hello, could you provide a backdrop?
Hello, everybody. We're back at Barclays. Oh, I've got the eyes of the world on me here. The eyes of the world are on Barclays. We're waiting for the AGM to commence. People are going in. I'm here today talking to Dorothea, who I've been told is a veteran AGM attendee. Is that on the inside or the outside, Dorothea?
I started on the outside, and I've gone inside for several now, and will go inside again for a couple more. But today I'm definitely on the outside.
What's your opinion of the state of what things are like with banks at the moment in terms of what they are financing?
I am appalled. You would have thought Barclays could have learnt under apartheid to do the right thing. Yet here they are, investing untold millions, billions in fossil fuels. It's exactly what they shouldn't be doing, as well as arming the arms trade. It is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. And we need to turn them around and call them out on their greenwashing, investing a minuscule proportion of their massive profits into small little projects does not exonerate them. And they are completely on the wrong side of history. We have to turn them around for the future of our grandchildren.
And the future of everybody living today, to be honest, because anybody who's under 50, I would say, has a good portion of their life left to live in deteriorating conditions.
Exactly. You know, I was talking to the children at school and they were horrified to learn that the air pollution alone from fossil fuels and construction and all the different things going on in their lives, that air pollution alone was reducing their own life expectancy by 18 months. Tell a 9-year-old that they've got 18 months less to live than they would have had if the government had legislated and not provided all sorts of tax breaks for the big banks. And, you know, it really is, to me, completely incomprehensible when the science is completely clear that fossil fuels are evil. And although we have built our entire capitalist economy on them, it's time that we stopped and put our time and effort into a just transition to a circular green economy.
And it's really interesting what you said about air pollution, actually, because Barclays funds Drax. The Drax Group, which is through burning of biomass in their power stations, they're the biggest emitter of CO2 in the UK.
And so, absolutely. I mean, I was inside at the Drax AGM quite recently, and they're burning trees. They're actually felling forests in North America to make these pellets with a process that is polluting the atmosphere for deprived communities nearby the biomass pellet. And, you know, the other thing about Barclays is they are part of the whole international money fund and syndrome that exploits the global south and their paralyzes them with debt so that they cannot do the level of development in their own countries to cope with the climate catastrophe that we in the global north have effectively imposed on them through our own development since the Industrial Revolution.
Do you feel like these direct actions do you feel like they're making change? You said you've been to quite a few. Have you seen any developments that show that being out here or being inside actually is influencing things?
Well, if you think back to when I was a teenager, which might be difficult for you because you're quite young, but when I was a teenager, we marched against involvement in the Vietnam War and we brought the troops back. When I was in my 20s, we tried to save the whale, and we saved the whale, which was our top mammal in our oceans. If we hadn't saved the whale, things would be much worse. But now we absolutely have to turn our full energy and resources into sorting out the global catastrophe that the whole climate change, all the climate change issues have brought to pass for future generations. It's up to us to sort it out.
Absolutely, and like you said, it's linked to poverty, it's linked to biodiversity destruction. We'll talk a bit to people who have come for those issues in particular, or arms trade as well.
Yeah, I mean, the arms trade is another clear example that the climate emergency is going to see, 3.5 billion people in famine trying to become refugees and come somewhere where there is food and water and a future. And they will be climate refugees trying to get into Europe. And there won't be sufficient room or support for them because there's too much profit for the capitalist system in manufacturing arms for the wars that keep them where they are. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, until we overturn the capitalist mode of production, we have got a real problem.
Thank you so much. It's been really interesting to talk to you. I've been told that we've got the official feed from Barclays coming in a few minutes, so we'll cut this now. I'll go for another little walk, and then we can see what's going on in a bit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Oh, my arms were nearly falling off.
You did.
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is pass over to standard. Oh, yes. I've just left my microphone. Love a live stream moment. Sorry, I've left my microphone.
Oh, you need your microphone.
Yes, please.
Does it just pull off?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. Take care. Right, back on track, everybody. Let's go see Standard Chartered, what's occurring there while we wait for the Barclays AGM to start. We've got the official feed that we can watch from inside very shortly.
Okay. Okay, we're good to go. We're back here outside Standard Chartered, and I'm here with Claude. Who are you and why are you here?
I'm part of Money Rebellion, and Money Rebellion targets the financial sector. Why would we target the financial sector? Because they are at the center of the climate crisis. And why are we here? Because today is Standard Chartered's AGM. Standard Chartered is one of those banks that fuels the climate crisis. The fact that they still finance names like Adani, Shell, Equinor, who all have projects that have workers' exploitation, environmental destruction, and the list goes on. The fact that these companies allegedly passed the ESG test, so environment, social, and governance test, doesn't make any sense. It's embedded corruption. We have allegedly regulation, but all that stuff is allowed. This is embedded corruption. I don't know.
So
how
it's
to call
embedded.
it
So it's the government that should be, applying the ESG test to these companies and should be saying no, because they're, not only are they not decarbonising and it's going to wreck the climate, but also the way in which workers are treated around the world, the way in which land is treated, the way in which Indigenous people, that's all wrong. So you're saying, it's it's
At the
embedded
moment,
corruption.
yeah, it's all voluntary, and it should all be properly regulated. And the regulator that we have is obviously totally inadequate, as it's allowing these things. It's not happening here, but that doesn't mean, you know, other people are not suffering, and people are people.
So how do we put more pressure? You know, obviously you've just said the ESGs are voluntary, so clearly they're being ignored, or because it's not, you know, there's no incentive to follow them at the moment. But how do we get action? How do we change it?
By putting pressures on the bank, but ultimately we need the regulator to act, and the regulator is so.
We're out. We're out.
You're back with us outside Barclays AGM in Westminster. And now, if you've just joined the live stream, you should be able to see that there's a bit of disruption going on inside the AGM itself. So we have some activists from the climate choir movement who are singing to disrupt the AGM. I believe they're singing something by the Spice Girls. So I can't quite, I'm hearing it in my ear, can't quite make out at the same time, but I think it's a play on "Don't Stop." Stop right now. So they're asking Barclays to stop investing in oil and gas and all other fossil fuels. Actually, Barclays has a really poor record on this, and their strategy at the moment has taken down a little bit of investment in coal out of their portfolio, as well as oil sands. But apart from that, they're going pretty much full throttle. And they've spent 16 billion in 2022 alone on fossil fuels. They're one of the only UK banks not to restrict oil and gas funding. So HSBC, Lloyds and NatWest have all started to do this. To look at their portfolios, Danske Bank in Denmark has actually declared an end to fossil fuel financing altogether. And we have to say, I might show you this clip later, that some of the actions that have taken in place inside these shareholder meetings, we believe they have great power, and they're really showing up what Barclays is doing to their shareholders who might not have otherwise been aware. These banks are very good at making their promises look very watertight, but actually independent organisations like London School of Economics and the Grantham Institute of Environmental Research have given Barclays in particular a 0% rating as to their commitment to achieve net zero by 2050. So we've got the singing process continuing inside. Last year, Money Rebellion went to the HSBC annual general meeting on the South Bank and sang a parody of Money, Money, Money by ABBA. That was viewed millions and millions of times on Twitter, and it would be interesting to know. I think we're going to talk to some Money Rebellion people who've been following HSBC's renewed commitment since that action, and we're very hopeful that these sorts of actions are actually shaming Barclays into taking more diligent action on climate change.
Okay, we'll start in a moment. Just let these...
I can speak over the top of the loudspeaker.
Yeah, let's get them out.
Well, that was amazing just seeing what happened on the inside of Barclays there. So we're back, just continuing this conversation with Claude here, and we were just talking about what can be done.
What can be done? Well, Treasury is extremely powerful, and they could change all the rules tomorrow. We need a fair and inclusive financial system with climate change and climate justice as its heart. But instead, what we are getting is a financial financial services and markets bill, which is a complete deregulation of the system and will lead the path to the next financial crisis. And we know what happens then.
So yes, there's this financial services bill that's come in, or that is going through its passage at the moment, and that's something that everyone should keep their eye on. But there's another campaign, there's a boycotting campaign that's coming up soon as well, is that right?
Yes, we would. Our next step will be to organize the largest fossil fuel banks boycott ever, that has ever been. So we need everybody to participate. We need grassroots groups. We need charities, churches. We need, any person. We need businesses, and because bankers only understand one thing: is their wallet and their profits, and that will hurt them there, and that should scare them.
Yeah, and for those who have a little bit more age credit and around during the anti-apartheid regime, they'll know that the boycotts of Barclays at that time were extremely important. So it really can help. This stuff all has a cumulative effect. So that sounds really amazing, and we'll hear more about it.
People who were young at that time are still not banking with Barclays because it's still in their head, and that's still how they perceive Barclays. So it does work.
And none of us should be banking with Barclays, really. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Claude.
You've just had some good news that the Barclays AGM has been disrupted.
And we're going to go over now to... it's going to be very loud. Go over now to Miranda from the Resist Glencore campaign, who was just speaking to us earlier. Do you want to tell us about the campaign?
So we're from Resist Glencore, which is also called the EACOP Solidarity Network. The EACOP people are a people, indigenous community who are based basically in between Colombia and Venezuela, moving in between. Glencore is a massive mining company, often known as the biggest company that no one's ever heard of, because they're basically like Shell or BP or ExxonMobil, but I really didn't know who they were until about half a year ago, and a lot of people don't know. And that's basically because often a lot of the coal or the minerals that they're mining for are in communities that are quite far away from maybe us in Europe, or in indigenous communities which are also even far away from the capitals of countries, for example, in Western Africa or Southern America. And basically we want to completely change that. And we want to make Glencore as well known as Shell and BP, and we want to completely transform what they are as a company, so people know them and that we can bring them down, basically. But it's not just about what we think is best in Europe, as often climate activism becomes. It's like, we don't want any fossil fuels, we're just going to demand this. But actually, it's about what the people on the front line of this extractivism want and need and demand. And we can't know because we're not there. So actually, we are in collaboration with the EACOP people of Colombia, and we are trying to bring their demands to the table, to the AGMs, to places like this, and also on social media, and going forward into the European climate movement, because because this is what we're missing. We're missing the people who are really suffering the most, and we're making demands on behalf of them, but really we shouldn't. They have their own demands, and one of the biggest demands is for people like Standard Charter to stop funding the mines that are on their ancestral land, to give them back their ancestral land, to let their water be clean, their air be breathable, and to build a sustainable future. And that doesn't just mean a future built on more and more renewable energy. It means growth. It does mean anti-capitalism, and that's what we're talking about. In balance with nature, protecting Mother Nature and Mother Earth, and listening to their voices. We have so much to learn. And yeah, please follow us on social media, Resist Glencore, and we've got open calls, so yeah, just check it out and hopefully see everyone again soon. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Miranda. Well done for everything that you're doing.
Should we just listen to this for a minute?
Absolutely.
So just gonna finish up with some chants and also some more Know Your Rights, and then we're gonna wrap up here. So from Scotland to Uganda, Standard Chartered off our land from Scotland to Uganda. Standard Chartered off our land from Scotland to Uganda.
Standard Chartered off our land.
So as we leave here today, I'd just like to remind you of your rights. So we've got the 5 main ones. So if the police ask you anything, what do you say? You say no comment.
We have had enough. Climate change is going too fast. Fossil fuels belong in the past. Oil and gas are history.
More than one of the joint shareholders is attending this meeting and intending to vote electronically, then the person whose name appears first in the share register should be the one who submits the vote. Your vote will have been submitted when the voting icon changes colour and a vote received message appears. There is no button to submit your final vote. If you have any questions about the online voting procedure, please refer to parts 3C and 3D of the notice of meeting, which set out information for shareholders attending the meeting electronically and an online platform user guide.
You're going to endanger yourself and other people.
Surely you care about your children. What will you say to your children when there is no food to eat? When the society has broken down completely? Barclays, we're done asking questions. Barclays, we have no time to spare. You want evil. You want in South Africa, and now you want talent. You want Israel. You provide art.
Okay.
Stop it now, baby, we have had enough. You dirty, dirty bag. We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth. Gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. You dirty, dirty bag. We have had enough. You dirty, dirty bag.
Take your seats, and if not, we will have to just people who come here to the chairman We have had enough.
Crisis severe, and it's funded by this fossil financier. Barclays is on the wrong side of history. We need a just transition to renewable energy and no new oil and gas. But you fund climate chaos. You are the largest fossil fuel funder in Europe. Please tell me why that is.
Correct, but
Barclays funds climate chaos. Barclays funds climate chaos. The largest funder of fossil fuels in Europe in a climate crisis.
questions. We very much see the AGM as your opportunity to hear from your board and for you to ask questions about the business of the meeting, and I hope we will have the opportunity to do that shortly. However, we are also very aware that a number of you will have constraints on your time today. You have 3 options to ask questions. In order to answer as many questions as possible, we strongly encourage those attending in person to register your questions at the question registration point just outside the main meeting room. Once you register your questions, you will be handed a card which will assist our staff in identifying you. During the Q&A session, the Chair will invite those of you who have registered a question at the question registration point to the microphone stand to ask your question. Our staff are available to assist you. If anyone with a disability wishes to ask a question and would like assistance, please make yourself known to Barclays staff and appropriate arrangements will be made. For those of you attending on the online platform or who are listening to the meeting by...
And we're back outside Standard Chartered, and I'm with Duncan from the Stop Rosebank campaign.
Oh, good to be here with you.
And so, yeah, just tell us a little bit about Stop Rosebank, why you're here in front of Standard Chartered today, what the Rosebank oil field means, and what people can do.
Yeah, so the Rosebank oil field is a proposed oil field in the North Sea. It's the biggest undeveloped oil field in the UK, containing around 500 million barrels of oil if it were to all be extracted. So it's around the equivalent of 28 lowest income countries' CO2 emissions for a year, just from one field. So it's absolutely massive, and we're campaigning really hard to have it stopped. The Rosebank oil field would be operated by Equinor, who are funded partly by Standard Chartered. So we're here protesting about that and about the many other projects that Standard Chartered fund in the Global South. In 2021, Standard Chartered gave Equinor nearly $300 million, which is a huge amount, and that's the sort of thing that enables Equinor to actually go ahead with these climate-wrecking projects.
So, yeah, what can people do here? So why are you here outside Standard Chartered? How do you think that's going to make an effect, and what do we need to keep doing? What's going to really change that and turn things around?
So there's a lot of different things people can do in the campaign just now. We're currently doing a mix between putting pressure on banks and companies like Standard Chartered to stop funding Equinor, to stop funding all these other companies. And we're also putting lots of pressure on politicians such as Grant Shapps just now, lots of pressure on the government to not approve Rosebank, because that's another stage that it still has to go through. And so it's another stage that we can have this field stopped at.
That's really, really interesting. And in terms of other things that the Stop Rosebank campaign has been doing over the last few months, because Rosebank's not new, and I guess, you know, the approval came through not long ago, and that must have been quite a blow. And like, how does, you know, there must also have been a sense of disbelief, I guess, that we're, as a government, you know, and as a country and as a, you know, still doing these things, you know, in light of the climate emergency that Parliament itself declared. So how do you feel in terms of, you know, I heard earlier from Claude about, you know, there's a lot of corruption involved. It just feels like there's a revolving door, and that, you know, it's about greasing palms at the moment, and that feels like a scandal to me. I'm just wondering how, you know, you approach.
Yeah, so Rosebank's not actually been approved yet. So the stage the field is at is that Equinor submitted their plans to the government, and then the regulator sent it back with further questions which echoed the concerns of lots of environmental campaigners, and that's been sent back twice already. And so we're currently waiting on the next response to see whether that will be an approval or more further questions or a rejection. So we're currently just mobilising as many people as we can, awaiting that response, and we would encourage everyone to get involved. There's roles in the climate movement for absolutely everyone. It doesn't matter what your skill set is. You can think of what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, what's needed in the fight for climate justice, and there will be a point where all of those cross over. And so we're just trying to get everyone involved in whatever roles they feel suit them.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks so much, Duncan. That's really, really fascinating. And yeah, we all need to get behind the Stop Rosebank campaign, and just another example of a campaign that at the moment has got a focus at Standard Chartered. Standard Chartered is funding Equinor, the company behind there, or who's seeking to exploit the Rosebank oil field. Do you know how much they're putting into Equinor?
Not this year. I don't think the figures for that are out yet. But in 2021, it was $298.8 million, I believe, dollars.
$298.8 million spent by Standard Chartered on Equinor, funding fossil fuel projects. So again, something completely incompatible with a world that isn't warming as fast as it is now. So again, thank you so much, Duncan, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Stop burning and stop branding our climate. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth. Gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. Chaos! Barclays funds climate chaos! Barclays funds climate chaos!
Hi. We're back here in Standard Chartered and I'm with Rosanna to talk about Stop EACOP. So yeah, why are you here today and what's been going on with Stop EACOP? Because it feels like things have shifted a lot.
So we're here today outside the Standard Chartered AGM. And yeah, when we started off creating this action, we were talking a lot about EACOP, which is the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, which, if built, would be the largest heated pipeline in the world, will run from Tanzania to Uganda. But on Friday, we got news that Standard Chartered has said they are not going to be funding EACOP. And we really want to say that this is a victory for the campaign, for the movement as well, because we've been putting so much pressure on Standard Chartered, because we've been going to things like their AGMs, we've been, really like going outside their offices, and they're basically, I think they're a bit scared. They're like, if we fund EACOP, like what are the activists going to do? So I think we really need to be celebrating this win.
Yeah, and clearly, like that's also a shift in public opinion because they must be worried about that. So there's a lot that's been getting out there. What does it mean for the EACOP? What does it mean for the pipeline? Does that mean it's an end to it? In which case, a huge victory for the people whose lands it's digging up and displacing. But what does it mean? Do we know if other banks are jumping in the way, or is there more that needs to be done?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're targeting insurers and we're targeting banks and saying, like, don't insure the pipeline, don't fund this pipeline. So we've gotten quite a few insurers to say they're not going to insure it. And now we have some of the big banks saying they're not gonna be funding it either. The campaign is still ongoing, but the pipeline was meant to be built a few years ago. So even though they have already started construction, it hasn't actually been built. So it is like, we are winning, but we have to continue the pressure. We have to continue, telling the insurers not to insure, telling the banks not to fund. So yeah, we're winning. But
so how do people do that? What's the one thing, two thing, three things that you need people to do now to keep that pressure up?
I would say, like, join the campaign. So if you're in London, you can get involved in Stop EACOP London, and they go to insurers. Like, every single week, we'll go to a new insurance company, and we'll be standing outside, like, handing out leaflets, telling them, don't insure EACOP. And yeah, I think we've gotten over 20 to say that they're not going to insure it. So we need more people to be helping out with that. Just find out more about what's happening. Also, we're in contact with students in Uganda who are fighting against this pipeline. It's a lot about, like, fundraising for them as well, because we're in such a privileged position being here. We can go onto the streets, we can protest, but in Uganda it's basically a dictatorship, and you are faced with jail time if you go out to the streets and say we don't want this pipeline. So yeah, it's really about supporting people in Uganda and Tanzania who are fighting the fight right there on the front lines.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Rosanna. Thank you. So there you've heard it. Another campaign connected to Standard Chartered. And still a huge victory, which we should celebrate, that Standard Chartered have pulled out. And that's because of the pressure that has been put on Standard Chartered and all these insurance firms that you heard about, telling them that you just cannot do this. You cannot fund, you cannot insure this pipeline. It's not compatible with a world that isn't warming as fast as it is now. So. But also another thing that's come up repeatedly today, and I want to stress, is that the exploitation of people, the way in which these projects use people, push people off their lands, which they have a right to live on, often ancestral and indigenous lands, what they do to local economies, forcing people out of livelihoods that might be completely different based on farming or based on different ways in which they live. Suddenly they're forced off, they're forced into cities, they're forced into relationships with finance that they didn't have before because they're no longer sustaining themselves. This is really deeply about climate justice, and you can see that by how all of these campaigns are coming together around this one bank. So I really want to also put a call out that more and more groups kind of realise that actually there's a lot of targets out there that we're all united by. And if we get together and put that deep, deep work in, you can join Stop EACOP and you can join the Resist Rosebank campaign. There are so many campaigns you can. It's not a zero-sum game. You don't have to choose one or the other. We're a lot stronger when we're working together and we understand there's a huge ecosystem. It's going to have a much stronger reach, and that changes public discourse. We've had a lot of people honking in their support as they come by today. It's a really good sign. Shows that what we're doing is working. It's just not working fast enough. So we need more and more people out on this doing things like this, out inside the Barclays AGM. There's lots of ways to get involved. So do visit, to keep an eye on the Rebellion broadcast, keep looking at Money Rebellion, see what's coming down the pipeline. The good pipeline, not the heated crude oil pipeline in Africa.
Now, and the rapid acquisition of one major Swiss one. Your board has spent considerable time examining these developments, considering contagion risks, and seeking to ensure that none of the mistakes made in these cases are repeated at Barclays. Your board and management team are firmly of the view that we have carefully managed the risks that undermine those other banks. Our liquidity management is more robust than seems to have been the case in some of those situations, and our stress tests have frequently incorporated materially higher interest rate scenarios of the type that we have recently witnessed. We also have a profitable business model, returning over 10% in each of our business lines and at group level. We have an excellent management team, recently strengthened.
Given one on arrival, please raise your hand.
Stop all you de-electing destruction and fear! For we are living through a climate crisis severe, and it's funded by this fossil financier. Barclays is on the wrong side of history. We need a just transition to renewable energy and no new oil and gas. But you fund climate chaos. You are the largest fossil fuel funder in Europe. Please tell me why that is. Barclays funds climate chaos. Barclays funds climate chaos. The largest funder of fossil fuels in Europe in a climate crisis. People are dying right now. Barclays funds climate chaos. Barclays funds climate chaos. Barclays funds climate chaos. The largest funder of fossil fuels in Europe in a climate crisis. Barclays funds climate chaos. Barclays funds climate chaos.
Thank you, madam. Yeah, go with her, please.
This way, excuse me. The largest funder of fossil fuels in Europe in a climate crisis. People are dying right now. Barclays funds
The harm you have caused is a terrible rift. Barclays brought chaos to all these ships.
I will not see those tonight on the online.
And let it be swift.
We'd like a swift.
The harm you have done is a terrible rift.
And let it be swift. For the harm you have caused is a terrible wreck.
A disgrace! How dare you bring Barclays funds climate chaos! Barclays funds climate chaos! Barclays funds climate chaos! Barclays funds climate chaos! They invested in South African apartheid! They invest in Israeli apartheid! They invest in fossil fuels!
Absolutely. So, thank you very much. You can carry on. In that case, I have to continue.
You are there, sir. Yeah, just capturing the madness.
Barclays is investing millions in coal, oil and gas and has continued to do so.
Nothing, but I'm going to have to go down the stairs, mate. We're on the stairs.
Barclays is on the wrong
Can you have someone to come with me? He's been filming it all. Where are the stairs, sir? Stairs are different way, mate. This gentleman needs to be shown the door. You guys, this man in here.
You do not need to type your name, as it will appear automatically when sent to us. If you are attending as a proxy or a corporate representative, please type in the text box the name of the person or organisation you are representing. Please note that we are not able to respond to you directly through the messaging icon. Questions submitted on the online platform will be read.
None of the money in the world will help you.
Guys, can we...
We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, stop it now, baby.
Hi, I'm here with Chi-Chi from War on Want. Chi-Chi, why is War on Want here at the Barclays AGM today?
So we're here outside Barclays AGM in solidarity with the Palestinian people because Barclays invests over $1 billion in 9 companies that are arming apartheid Israel with weapons used to kill and brutalize Palestinians.
Are you hoping that, how are you hoping that you'll be able to change that by being here today, or do you have other campaigns that are ongoing?
Yeah, so it's part of our running. This is part of our campaign to Barclays Stop Banking on Apartheid. So far we've done actions outside over 40 Barclays branches across the UK to get Barclays to stop investing in arms companies that supply Israel.
Do you think that most people are not aware of what their money is being used for when they're banking with Barclays? Is this something you found?
Yeah, definitely, because like Barclays is one of the most well-known brands of bank in the UK, and it's got a presence on every high street. And I think that a lot of people would be shocked to know that their money is being used to be invested in violence, essentially. And of course, this isn't the first time that Barclays has been complicit in apartheid. Like during apartheid South Africa, it was only years of campaigning by dedicated activists that forced Barclays to withdraw. And we definitely see ourselves as part of that legacy, and we want to bring that forward to today and to say that, we don't think that any company should profit from apartheid, and that's as true now as it was then.
So what are they spending their money on specifically in Israel and the Palestinian territories?
Yeah, so Barclays invests in 9 companies that arm Israel, including Elbit Systems, which is Israel's biggest private arms manufacturer. Elbit manufacture 85% of drones that are used by the Israeli army, including in the brutal bombardments of Gaza that we see on the news periodically. It also invests in companies like BAE Systems, Caterpillar bulldozers are used to demolish Palestinian homes and also to build illegal Israeli settlements. So there's a whole range of weapons and military infrastructure.
Thanks for that, because I think sometimes when people just hear it's funding apartheid, people aren't necessarily aware of what their money's doing, but that makes it very clear that it's all these different services and enabling these terrible things to go on. If people are hearing that, they've got their money in Barclays and they want to change, what would you suggest?
I would say that, wait, sorry, what was the question?
What can people do if they're invested in Barclays and they want to make a change, basically?
Yeah, we would say that definitely get involved in the campaign. You can write to Barclays and write to your local branch and just make them aware that we're here and we're not going to go away and that people care. And I think it's really important that Barclays know that. For us, that's definitely the first step.
Yeah. Thanks very much for being on the Money Rebellion live stream and for sharing, because I'm sure people who are watching this from Money Rebellion would really like to know that the other organisations are here today.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Let the operator know that you wish to ask a question. Please give your name to the operator and, if relevant, the name of the person or organisation.
Let justice be done and let it be swept. And let it be swift.
The harm you have done is a terrible
We've set out information for shareholders attending the meeting electronically and an online platform.
You're going to endanger yourself and other people.
They invest in Israeli apartheid. There are plenty invest in fossil fuels, grandparents and mothers and fathers in this room. You're condemning your children to a life of hell. When there are top meetings, year on year, what are you saying? What are you saying to your children? They invested in South African apartheid. They invested in Israeli apartheid. You want South Africa, and now you want
because people have come here to listen and to ask some questions. So it's up to you. Perhaps we can ask these people to leave the room. Thank you.
Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth.
Questions submitted on the online platform will be read out to the meeting by a member of our staff colleague before being answered. If you are attending on the online platform and would prefer to ask a question via telephone, you will need to have completed some registration
side by side.
Leave it in the soil. We're here to say, Barclays, enough is enough. Don't shuffle us off this mortal coil. Barclays, leave it in the
Billions into fossil fuels. Now this is our nation and all of its jewels. The people, the arm, and our earth shall pollute. Fossil fuel expansion is against what all of the world's leading scientists are saying. Fossil fuel expansion is against any net zero scenario, against any livable future. You are the largest financer not just of fossil fuels, but of fossil fuel expansion. We want an orderly and just transition. A just transition involves no new fossil fuels. You are the largest financer of new fossil fuels in Europe. The largest financer of new fossil fuels in Europe. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
coming too fast. Fossil fuels belong in the past. Oil and gas are history. Time is up. Dirty banks are breaking our climate. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop burning fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth. God, baby, we have had enough. We have had enough. Climate change is going too fast.
Sorry, can you come to the exit? Thank you very much.
Oil and gas are history.
It's not loud. Sorry.
Stop right now. Only oil and gas. Fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gonna stop it now, baby. We've had enough. Dirty bag. We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop burning fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough.
We have had enough right now. In the past, our history. Stop right now. No more gas. Stop burning fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey, you, turning up the earth. Gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. Do, 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 do. We have had enough. Stop it right now. No more oil and gas. Stop burning fossil fuels and end this.
Arms as if a vicious fool. Invest in arms as a vicious fool. Barclays, how can they be so cruel? Barclays, how can you be so cruel? Barclays has funded $190 billion in fossil fuel extractions.
Barclays, leave it in the soil.
We would like to shuffle you off out of here, if that's okay. So we can get on with the meeting. We want to shuffle you off. Can you please shuffle out?
Don't shuffle us off this mortal coil.
I think if you said enough is enough, I suspect all the people in the room agree with that.
You will see so many more protests like this for as long as you continue to put billions into the fuels that will cause death of humans everywhere. Barclays is still turning the largest of billions of people. And do not think we are hysterical. This is what the UN has said. This is what climate scientists have said. This is what every respectable expert on this topic has said. Leave it in the soil.
There's a number of you will have constraints on your time today. You have.
Well, we're back outside. The choir that disrupted the inside of the Barclays AGM this morning in Westminster. They put in a valiant effort. I haven't seen it all. I'm looking forward to watching all the clips later when I get home. But they've come out back to the road across, and we're getting some lovely songs. Not the Spice Girls variety anymore, but some of those favourite climate anthems that some of you might know. And we're just coming to an end now. So what an amazing feeling it must have been to disrupt that action, and hopefully some change to have come out of it as well. I'm just going to say I'm on 7% battery here, so I might peter out at any point. But we just had to catch the end of that. It's so lovely. I did the last year's HSBC as well, and people coming out of there's something quite symbolic about being kicked out of an AGM when you're telling the truth, and the people inside are just so disconnected from the reality, and they want to silence you at any cost. They can just get on and answer the important questions. But I think we've shown today. We've talked to some people from War on Want here. We talked to people who are looking at Palestine Action. Didn't hear all of Standard Chartered, but there's so many issues here that Barclays really needs to work on. And hopefully this is making their shareholders think, actually, yes, we can take action, or we can ditch them altogether and we can invest our money in banks that do actually give a fig about our futures, about the future of the planet, and being able to have a livable space. It's about responsibility at the end of the day, isn't it? And whether or not you believe in capitalism and the power of the finance and financial services industries, we need, we have to take responsibility for our time on this earth, and not to continue to use our money for greed. And the energy crisis has really put that into perspective, I think, about how the energy complex and the government still trying to pump money into, or allowing the energy companies to have their to take their profits and not try and divert those to people who really need them. And the same kind of thing is going on with the banks. The banks are taking their cue from the government and vice versa. And they really need to get into ethical investing. And we know that some banks are doing that. HSBC has started to make the right noises after a lot of pressure from activist groups and from members of the public. If you're investing in any of these banks, please have your say and put your money where it's going to be used wisely, because it is your money and you can make a difference. I'm just going to turn around to the crowd now. And we can hear a bit more of the singing. And I will see if we can find any more people to interview who were involved in this very symbolic and quite moving action. Do we still have anybody to speak to at Standard Chartered?
Don't truffle us off this mortal coil. Barclays, leave it in the soil. You've poured £190 billion into fossil fuel projects. You're killing the earth. We're here because we know your record of destruction and violence. We won't stand for it. We're here because we want to live. We want to have a future. We need no new oil and gas. We need a just transition to renewables. No new oil and gas. No new oil and gas.
Barclays, how can they be so cruel? Barclays, how can you be so cruel? Barclays, $190 billion.
Barclays is signing apartheid from South Africa to Palestine. Barclays has been on the wrong side of history for decades. Barclays sided with South Africa, now we're on the face of apartheid. Barclays, you're on the wrong side of history. Your investments will protect millions of people.
Lots of people have come here not to shout at us, but to ask questions.
Right, I've managed to catch Joe from Money Rebellion, who's here with the Climate Choir today. Joe, you've just come outside from inside Barclays AGM. It looks like it's been an amazing experience. How did it go?
It went like a dream. I coordinated the singing disruption at HSBC's AGM last year, when some of the people here disrupted their AGM with their version of Anna's Money, Money, Money. I was slightly nervous. I was like thinking, will I get away with it again? But yes, with brass knobs on, because we've actually got a lot more people in. So since then, we formed the Climate Choir movement, which is over 400 singers from 7 climate choirs around the UK. So a lot of them are here today. And yeah, we made our points. Stop funding fossil fuels. That's in the past. And Barclays are still, as you probably know, still the biggest funders of fossil fuels in Europe. They're the 7th biggest funder in the world. They're a British UK bank, and morally, totally morally corrupt. Not just for that reason, there are other people out here who are protesting at the same time. They're greedy greenwash buckets, and we had people, singers who had hidden under their vests little banners which said things like boycott Barclays and Barclays stop your greenwash, and that's one of the main things I want to get across. That Barclays are past masters of greenwash. They really are. They'll give some money to a local primary school to plant a few trees and make sure they get lots of publicity for that. In the meantime, they're funding Drax, they're funding JBS, who are one of the biggest sort of destroyers of the Amazon rainforest. So it's not just on the fossil fuel thing that they're morally corrupt. But anyway, it's a wonderful way of just speaking truth to power.
Is it, presumably it's more about making them look silly, although that's a big part of it. It's so great to watch that live stream and just they don't know what to do. It's like that one day a year, isn't it, where they're actually a bit vulnerable, I would say.
Absolutely, they don't normally have people speaking up to them, and singing actually is a really good way of moving hearts and minds and getting a message across, rather than just one thing. We sing it again and again, the same messages, stop funding fossil fuels. And we have had enough. We have had enough of their greenwash. We've had enough of them profiting on the backs of all our futures, and Barclays needs to wake up.
So it's time for your plug moment, because I think the live stream will probably wrap up soon. We've had so many different organisations here today, so it really feels like a nice kind of way to continue from the big one, XR's bringing together of all different people from the climate movements and other like social justice movements. What can people do if they want to join up with Money Rebellion?
If they want to join, go on the website, Money Rebellion website. If they want to join Climate Choir, Climate Choir movement, go on the Bristol Climate Choir website and they can get in touch. If they want to know why we're targeting Barclays in particular, go on the sharkleys.co.uk website, which has over 250 protests by people across the UK.
That's at local branches, isn't it?
And national HQ and so on. But people have been trying so hard to get them to change course, and it's all blah, blah, blah at the moment. But I'm hoping this will have shaken them up. Who knows? We never know. But the other thing to say is if they want to go on the Sharkleys website, they can find out how to switch bank accounts if they've got relatives who are banking with Barclays, or some of the other ones like Standard Chartered or HSBC, for instance. Go on the Sharkleys website and the Mother Tree calculator and switchit.green websites on that.
Because they're all alternatives, aren't they? People say people try to just say, oh well, they're all as bad as each other, but it's not actually the case.
No, absolutely they're not. And Barclays are the worst of the worst. So yeah, I'm hoping that we'll have had some impact. And they are, aren't they?
The energy knows no bounds. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. A big high after doing something like that. Thank you very much, Joe, for your inspiring action today and talking to us.
Thank you. Take
care. Yeah, have my microphone. Oh, let's push that. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody. Oh, I've just walked into some kind of Tudor protest here. I think there were various people inside who you might or might not have seen. There was a Tudor-style protest here from fossil-free London, trying to shame Barclays in Shakespearean language. I'm not sure where we're headed next, if we have anything left to see at Standard Chartered. We had Money Rebellion people there as well.
Time is up, dirty banks, stop wrecking our climate. Stop right now, no more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby, we have had enough. Do 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 do, dirty dirty bank. Do 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 do. We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop.
If you have any questions about the online voting in the future, please refer to parts 3C and 3D of the notice of policy, which set out information for shareholders attending the meeting electronically. We have an online
They invest in fossil fuels for grandparents.
Scott, yeah, no, you do. Be careful with that lady.
You're condemning your children. When there are drug failures year on year, what will you say? What will you say to your children? When there's no food to eat, when the society has broken down, investing in self-defense, not asking questions, investing in You want evil! You funded South Africa, and now you fund Palestine. You fund Israel. You provide arms.
Thank you. I'll continue.
We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. We have had enough. Love, baby, we have had enough. Dirty, dirty bang. We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough.
Can I just start heading towards the door?
Dirty, dirty bang. We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. You dirty, dirty bang. We have had enough. Climate change is going too fast. Fossil fuels belong in the past. Oil and gas are history. Time is up, dirty bank. Stop breaking our climate. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough.
Beautiful, madam.
You dirty, dirty bang. We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey, you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby.
Exit down the side. Madam, really quite clearly. Exit down that side. Thank you.
Are you recording, ma'am?
Good night. Down the side.
We have had enough. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey you, burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
1, 2, 3, 4. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and.
Two more companies just go.
We have had enough. Burning up the earth, gotta stop it now, baby. We have had enough. Dirty, dirty bag. We have had enough. Climate change is going too fast. Fossil fuels belong in the past. Oil and gas are history. Time is up. Dirty banks are breaking our climate. Stop right now. No more oil and gas. Stop funding fossil fuels and end this madness. Hey the earth, gotta stop it now, baby, we have had enough. You dirty, dirty bag.
Just great to watch back over those videos from inside. I'm sure we'll be seeing many more on Instagram and various TikToks and things like that. Just to wrap up now, basically, we've had that outside, the outside sing-song, and now everyone's really dispersed. So that was the main thing. We're letting the AGM take the rest of its course. And I expect that there are organisations inside that are, their aim will be to ask questions about ask questions of Barclays and hold them to account further, but just with slightly different methods, actually engaging in their own process, whereas the aim of today was very much a symbolic disruption to try and shake them to their senses. So it'll be interesting to watch the news in coming days. So thank you very much for watching, and as we've said throughout, you can get involved if your money isn't already in a bank that's on the better end of the scale in terms of investments. You can go to the Money Rebellion website and find out where you can invest your money, or you might decide that you want to be somebody who gets involved in campaigning. It really does make a difference. The fossil fuel industry is enabled by the financial services industry. That includes insurance as well, this illegal profession. All of these things are intersecting. So if you've been inspired today, you might not even be a part of Money Rebellion, but you might have gone to the big one that Extinction Rebellion co-organised, and you think, I want to get involved, please just look on the website, Extinction Rebellion. I think it's changed it now, actually, but it used to be rebellion.earth. I don't think it is. Just look up on Google or your preferred search engine. There's lots of information about all the different areas you can get involved with. So we wanted to finish on an informational video, which is about Adani. So Adani has been in the news a lot recently. The Adani Group is huge. They do a lot to do with mining. They financed the Carmichael coal mine, which is one of the biggest in the world in Australia, and they've had all sorts of Indigenous people's rights issues attached to that. They do a lot of mining in Adivasi Indigenous areas in India. And Barclays is still invested in that. So that's one of the coalish areas that they are invested in. So we're going to watch a little video about some of the destruction that we've done. We can see firsthand some of that. And people who are here today have just tried to play their part by coming to the annual general meeting, but obviously the impacts are global. So yes, thanks for watching again. Please do like and share if you think somebody else that you know could benefit from having a look inside what Barclays is doing. Hope you've enjoyed the live stream, and join us again.
My name is Adrian Burragubba. We're at a crucial time in history now where these great mega mines are coming to us and asking us as the traditional owners of the land to sign away our native title rights and interests to that land. These mines are very dangerous, and they're detrimental to not only just the environment but the laws and customs that are based in that land that are very important to the Wangan and Jagalingou people. The most important thing is for us to maintain our cultural integrity. Some of these mines will be here right into the future, 40, 50, 60 years from now. We could lose our identity. We're going to make every effort to stop this mining company from destroying our land. I'm going to convince all of our people to stand together as one people and one voice. And then we're going to ask all Australian people and people from all over the world to stand with us and unite with us to fight this fight. This is not an easy fight for us, and we're asking everybody to stand with us to stop these mines from destroying this land. We don't need this coal. We don't need them. We don't need their money. We need them to leave our land alone. We need to protect that land. Our forefathers, my father and their grandfather, they had their money, they had their wages garnished and money taken off them, and so there was no inheritance for us. And all we've got left now is our inheritance is the land, and that's our responsibility.
My name is Diana. I am from Uganda. The Tilenga Oil Project is an upstream oil project through which Total Energies intends to extract for oil from within Murchison Falls National Park and other areas. The Tilenga Oil Project has about 400 oil wells, and of those, 100 are within Murchison Falls National Park. Now, the oil extracted from the Tilenga and Kingfisher oil fields will be transported by a crude oil pipeline called the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, or the EACOP. The EACOP, if it is constructed, will be 1,443 kilometers. This will greatly impact the climate, but also biodiversity, the environment, and livelihoods of people in East Africa.
Stop EACOP!
Stop EACOP!
Stop EACOP!
Attack EACOP!
EACOP, they promised us that the way they found people after they have passed their pipeline, the livelihood of people will change. We have lost land and we don't have money to purchase another land. I had the owner 1 acre of land. 2 pipelines passed through. I had a house. I had a business of beekeeping. Because now I don't have anything. If I had 100, maybe now I have 10. But they are saying they will come, they do something more than what I had. But where is it? It was already spoiled.
Sit down and allow me to proceed with the meeting.
Will be stopped. You are willfully leading us to disaster.
We will stop you.
Shall, must, fall.
We're here to persuade the CEOs, the board and the shareholders that HSBC need to change and change fast.
Please can I ask you not to interrupt the meeting?
We use the power of the voice.
Shareholders are
It's so scummy.
I want them to think about what they're profiting from.
As chairman of this meeting, my duty is to ensure the business is properly conducted.
Your duty, your responsibility to future generations is to make the transition to non-fossil fuel investment and do it now.
Will you all please stand and leave the auditorium now?
We were rolling drunk on
You need to let the order of the meeting go on.
Okay, so you're failing to comply. I've given you a warning, and we will now start placing hands on you to remove you from the auditorium.
When I say shall, you say criminal. Shall! Shall!
We know that Shell is planning to spend nearly $40 million a day over the next 8 years, 8 crucial years on new oil and gas.
I've just been handed a report that total chaos has broken out in the Shell AGM.
We were there to disrupt the meeting and to call out the board of Shell, who are spending 90% of their capital on oil and gas and greenwashing and kidding the public on that they're actually doing a lot of investment in renewable. So we were there to call them out on that, and in fact the meeting had to be abandoned because there were so many protesters.
HSBC are one of the worst fossil financiers in Europe. Between 2016 and 2021, the bank pumped $130 billion into the fossil fuel industry.
It's
2013, they signed an accord to move away from funding fossil fuels. It was a publicity stunt, just like we're doing.
Very dirty man.
We've come to clean up Barclays.
Barclays Bank. We are here to get the decision makers of Barclays to listen. We are not targeting employees or customers. We want the board members, shareholders, and investors to hear us.
It was their way to attract people to their green eco-banking business. It was a lie.
Singing brings people together, and I think it's a very uplifting and connecting way to get a message across.
Never take away my voice. You can compromise my freedom.
We have to keep up on standing up for what we think is right and let our voice be heard.
Break me from my family.
This is one of the headquarters, the centres of power where Vanguard people make decisions which the future of the world rests on. It's up to people like us who can have access to Vanguard, who can show up outside their offices to use our rights, to lift up our voices and hold them to account.
And the fact that we're sending a letter into the Vanguard offices for their chief executive is about trying to explain our case, not simply to give a hostile slogan, but to explain why we are there and why we believe that Vanguard's investment in fossil fuels is really bad for everybody. In the end, it's very bad for the world, for the environment, but it doesn't benefit anybody, since we are all dependent ultimately on the health of our environment.
2050, that's their climate target.
Yeah.
I don't think so. We'll all be 6 feet underwater in 2050, thanks to Barclays.
We're here to give HSBC a message, and if we need to trash their reputation for them to change, well, that's what we'll do.
The greedy buggers in the City of London and elsewhere need to stop funding fossil fuels, and they need to do it quickly.
What are you doing here?
We've come to clean up this dirty, dirty building with all its greenwash.
The government inaction is getting worse and worse at the moment. They're backtracking